Hey guys, so welcome back to second to the last na po tayo ng module natin sa Adet. So this would be the software requirements analysis and modeling. No. This topic is actually will also be discussed on the other subjects, like for example in software engineering or in SAD course. No? But in this case, it was included in the course aided because of the introducing the software na pwedeng magamit, especially in modeling. No? So let's go. So let's start right away. Okay, so by the end of this fifth module, we'll be able to define requirements analysis and its steps. Yeah? So there are basically around 4 or 5 steps in this process of uh, analysis of the software. Then familiarize different flow diagrams and use a certain software. So I will be showing you, or the student will be uh, gaining a skill in using some software on how to model uh, the requirements, specifically the entity relationship diagram. So, so what is a requirements analysis portion of software engineering? So, this activity reviews all the requirements and may provide a graphical view of the entire system. So, um, means to say, you will be having a bird's eye view of the requirements needed to perform by the software intended for a certain client. No? So, and graphical view in a sense na uh, para madaling mag-grasp yung requirements or yung ano yung gagawin ng supposedly ipe-perform ng system natin or ng software. And in this case, dito yung brainstorming usually nangyayari in between the client, the customer, and the developer or the company. Uh, and that is to clarify points of confusion and to understand which requirements are more important than others. Meaning, not all the requirements coming from the customer um, may be may deviate. No? The right term is deviate because maaaring sa point of view nila is ito yung requirement pero sa mga developer is there's another way or there may be a better understanding of the true requirements ng pangangailangan ng system nila. So usually may mga feedback, no? Continuous feedback ito kasi after ng pagka-gather ng data and then masaset na yung scheduling ng pag-code and up to testing tapos babalik sa kanila usually uh, a small cycle na paulit-ulit hanggang ma-meet yung talagang tamang optimum requirements. And here's the steps of the requirements analysis. We have 4 steps. First is to draw the context diagram and then develop a prototype, which is optional, and model the requirements and finalizing the requirements. So we'll go one by one on these steps. One example of context diagram is drawn in this next slide, a student result management system. So let us define first what is context diagram. So this is actually a simple model that defines the limits between the interfaces, the outside entities and the system itself hanggang sa output ng system. No? So it identifies the entities outside the proposed system that interact with the system. So sino yung mga yon? So ito yung bird's eye view as contextual diagram. Nire-represent yung student result management system, yung proposed system, isa-isang buong bilog. No? Ito yung mismong system. Pero within this management system na represented by a small circle here or a circle, marami pang sub-circles yan na mag-teamwork para mabuo yung system or nag-i-interact. Sino yung mga outside entities? Like for example, in a student result management system, may administrator dyan, and then may operator, tapos of course there is ano yung mga entry entities attributes natin. Like for example, yung student information, the subjects information entry, and marks entry. Like for example, mark sheet output nito, kailangan ng input ng grades para ma-generate niya, ma-compute niya. So yung limit doon doon sa entry na entities, meron tayong tatlo dito na administrator, the students, and the operator. Then yung output natin, meron tayong mga generated reports. Since it is a student result management system, it is more on the student output oriented type of limit sa outside. No? So ang limit dito sa output versus sa input, kung titignan natin, administrator doon, wala na siyang paki dito kung titignan mo sa labas kasi puro students information na dito. So student information reports generated, and then mark sheet generated, and student performance reports generated. In essence, makikita natin sino lahat yung mga identity entities natin. The second step is to develop a prototype, and this is optional. Usually kapag nagkaroon na ng kontrata at nagkasundo na doon sa survey, mga requirements, brainstorming, tapos usually dine-develop na yung actual product ng software o ng system. Meron din namang ibang paraan na not actually the prototype for a specific customer, meron din mga examples na pwedeng pakita sa kanila just to find out what the customer wants will look like, and solely dito magkakaroon ng feedback. And usually pag prototype na, usually nag-yield pa rin papunta sa output as the final product. But since in the developer side, it's a prototype, it's a low cost muna, kasi baka pwedeng pinopropose muna, hindi pa panalo sa or hindi pa nag-win dun sa signing contract, pwedeng magpakita na muna ng prototype sa customer based on their requirements. So when developers and users are not sure about some of the elements, it's not just the developer ang naghahanap ng ng elements or yung function ng software. Likewise, minsan sa customer din, hindi rin nagiging klaro or maraming questions sa kanila. So ito dito papasok yung prototype that will help both parties to take final decision what will the software will actually do. Okay. Okay, the next step is what we call modeling the requirements. So this process usually consists of various graphical representations of the functions, data entities, external entities and relationships between them. So, the graphical view may help to find incorrect, inconsistent, missing, and superfluous of the requirements. Such models include the data flow diagram, entity relationship diagram, data dictionaries, state transition diagrams. No? In this case, in this module, so we will just be focusing na lang dun sa entity relationship diagram since yung software yung i-introduce natin. No? Yun ang advantage dun sa Adet. Anong example of technology na pang-model? Kaya pinasok natin yung modeling na yan. So, we'll be using actually the Lucid chart trial version. The basic version ng paggawa ng ER diagram. No? So, just yung modeling requirement technique is just like a blueprint of a certain structure. Parang sa mga engineer, meron silang mga plano na naka-blueprint. No? For example, architecture, civil engineer, may blueprint sila, may figures doon. So, ito yung garahe, ito yung sala, ito yung carport, at ano yung mga function ng bawat isa is, sa diagram. No? So, just like a blueprint, no? For entity relationship diagram. Yeah. And then, after knowing the blueprint or the ERD, nagkaroon na ng bird's eye view using the modeling technique ng ERD, doon makikita yung mga flaws ng requirements between the developer and the customer. Ano yung nawawala, ano yung incorrect, ano yung dapat tanggalin, at yung mga inconsistencies. Yeah. So, it is actually partially part of the designing and brainstorming until such time ma-finalize na yung requirements dun sa step 4. So, after modeling the requirements, so we will have a better understanding of how the system behave, and the inconsistencies and ambiguities have been identified and corrected. So, yun ang pinaka-critical lang naman doon. Knowing the inconsistencies and ambiguities, meaning yung flaws ng system bago ma-finalize. Yung matutulungan na ma-correct yung mga yon doon sa modeling. No? Okay. The flow of the data amongst various modules has been analyzed. So, then, finalized and analyzed requirements, the next step is to document the requirements in a prescribed format, in a, usually in a contract form. No? So, may form yan na pag-agree nila. Ito yung expect namin, supposedly, ito yung ma-output nyo. At yan ang pinag-agree natin, na ito yung flow na matatanggal yan. At ito yung suggestion mo, ito yung suggestion ko. Then nag-agree tayo to finalize the requirements. So usually nagpipirma rin doon. And for the documentation purposes and inventory, just in case magkaroon ng flaws, nire-review nila doon. Okay? So that is finalizing the requirements. So I think let's move right away ng the specific modeling technique using the entity relationship diagrams. No? Kasi yung iba naman doon, yung in-depth knowledge would be discussed in the other subjects or course, no? In SAD and in software engineering. In this case, ang purpose dito actually, pinaka-purpose is to introduce a simple a software that would actually model the requirements. No? Using Lucid chart. Okay, ER modeling is a data modeling method used in software engineering to produce a conceptual data model of the information system. Diagrams created using this entity relationship modeling method are called entity relationship diagrams, or ERDs, or ER diagram. Before we will be discussing a simple system, uh, you may pause and try to download Lucid Chart for free yung trial version nila. So inaalaw naman may open source tayo. This is Lucid Chart. No, you just have to put your email, your name, then yung ibibigay na code sa iyo, isa-send and register. Then you can enjoy the basic or the free trial version, no, before you could actually model the requirements. So let us now talk about the uh, common modeling techniques in presenting the customer requirements. And this is what we call the entity relationship diagram. So ER diagram. So let us define first what are entity attributes and what is relationship. Okay. So an entity can be a real world object such as name of object, a person, or anything that is considered to be your record in the row of your database. For example, students, teachers, classes, and courses. So another example here, actually I have here a specific example that we will be doing in Lucid Chart. Here the entities are as follows: the customer, order, and product. Now, and note that these entities are actually recorded in the database or table and uh, row. In this case, we have here the customer entity or table. We have uh, the records of the entity in a rows, uh, while the attributes are actually the columns. In this case, the attributes are first name, last name, street, city, zip, and phone. So, what are attributes? So, entities are actually the traits and properties. No? Attributes are the traits or the properties of the entity. No? So, for example, again, a customer has name, first name, last name, address, zip code, phone, city, and etc. Okay. Now, the relationship would actually tell us about the interaction between the entities. Here are the three entities in this case: customer, that has interaction or relationship to order, as well as uh, order has an interaction or um, relationship to product. So each entity actually is represented by a table in the database. Like for example, in this case, customer, this is the customer table. The attributes, again, are the columns. First name, last name, street, city, zip code, and phone. And in this case, we have customer ID, which are actually unique. By default, on the database, it is actually incremented by 1. But you could actually manage uh, the type of or the style of giving a customer ID. But but in this case, it is by the number, increasing by number, or interval by 1, a value increasing by 1. Uh, that is by default. But you could actually set your, we could actually set the record of this ID, uh, your preference. Like for example, your logging username and password. The username actually can be considered as your ID. And once it is used, it will give you a notice that it is already used. That the username was already used by other account. So, in this case, this is a customer table or customer entity. The next is order entity. So, The attributes are as follows: customer ID, customer name, to street, to city, to state, to zip, and ship date. And about the third entity, we have the product table or the product entity. So the attributes are quantity and product type. Okay. So before we're gonna show you on how to create a chart or a model using Lucid chart, let's uh, first show the what we call the cardinality. uh, the, there's what we call ERD cardinality. So ERD cardinality um, are the ones will tell us what kind of relationship uh, we have between two entities. For example, here we have ERD cardinality of only one. No? Uh, this notation, just like a crow foot. Many, this is a one and only one. Zero or one, this is one or many. And this is zero or many. So we will um, uh, be discussing this more when we go through the specific example. Yeah. So here is a Lucid chart that I have downloaded. Lucid chart is not limited to ERD modeling tool. No? You could actually use it in flow charting. Uh, in this case, we have the entity relationship, walls, rooms, or any other figures that you would like to present. In this case, we are using the ERD tool of this Lucid chart software, and it is a trial version only by Lucid chart. Here we could actually drag the entity. In this case, I may choose a two-column entity or three-column. I prefer to choose the three-column entity so that I could actually declare the type of variable. Because in Lucid chart, ER diagram tool, you could actually convert this entities, this table into the database table, like for example in PHP structure. So by actually using the export, so we'll be showing that later. So this is an example. Like for example, I would like to use this entity. I could actually control the number of uh, attributes and records. In this case, I have only three records. Say, for example, I would like to type this or consider this as the table for the customer table. And then, what are the attributes? So let's go back to our figure. The attributes then would be first name, last name, street. First name, last name, street. So the field then would be first name. So say first um, first name. I could actually expand this so we could see the characters in its field. And the type is we have different types. It's an integer type, a character type, or variable character. So we'll call this a varchar type. Say the length of the variable is, say, it could actually handle 30 characters, say for example for the first name. Then for the last name, just type here, just click the cell and you could actually encode the attribute. First name, last name. Then let's just consider also a variable character type of length 30. What's the next attribute? Street, city, zip, and phone. So So let me just pause for a while. I will just fill up everything and show you. Okay. So you could actually control the number of rows here. So we have, say, for example, 7 rows. So it will increase. No? So that's how we encode the attributes and the entity table at header customer. No? So same is true with the other fields. No? So let me just open the file that I've already saved a while ago. So let me pause for a while, guys.